Welcome to Unbound, the podcast with Beth Curry, author, storyteller, and survivor. This is where books meet real life, where Beth reads chapters from her work and breaks free from the traditional audiobook format, diving deeper into the personal experiences, lessons, and liberation behind every page. Nothing is off limits. Let's get unbound.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Unbound Season 2, The Weight of Truth. I'm Beth Curry, and today I am going to be reading and talking about something that threw a massive wrench into my transformation journey. A disease that most people have never heard of that completely changed how I had to approach my health. This is chapter 12 in the book, The Disease You've Never Heard of. Just when I thought I had figured out the weight loss game, my body decided to be a bitch and change the rules without telling me. I had been diagnosed with lipedema 25 years earlier, but like most people, I had no idea what that actually meant. The doctor mentioned it briefly, gave me no real information about it, and I promptly forgot about it because I had bigger fish to fry, like the hundreds of pounds I was carrying around. Lipedema is a chronic condition where fat is distributed abnormally in your legs, arms, ass, the ass I affectionately call Mount Everass, and sometimes other areas. It's often painful, always progressive, and frequently misunderstood as just being fat. It affects almost exclusively women. It's genetic, and it has absolutely nothing to do with diet or exercise. But here's the kicker. It can flare up during hormonal changes, like, say, a hysterectomy. After my hysterectomy, something started happening to my legs that I couldn't explain. They felt heavy. Not tired heavy, but literally heavy, like I was wearing lead boots. The pain was different from anything I'd experienced before, a deep, aching, constant discomfort that made every step feel like work. I was fighting harder than ever with my diet and exercise routine, but my legs were getting bigger and more painful, not smaller. It felt like my lower body was rebelling against all the progress I'd made everywhere else. Here's how déjà vu was working during this confusing time. The fact, my legs were getting bigger and more painful despite my continued efforts. My thought, I must be doing something wrong. I must be eating too much or not exercising enough. How that thought made me feel? Frustrated, confused, like I was failing at something I thought I had mastered. My actions, I tried harder. I cut calories more. I exercised more intensely, which became harder and harder because of the pain and heaviness. I beat myself up for not being able to control what was happening to my body. The result, my legs continued to get worse, and I felt increasingly disconnected from my own body and my own progress. The most maddening part was that nobody understood what I was talking about. When I tried to explain that my legs felt different, that the fat distribution looked different, that the pain was unlike anything I'd experienced during my obesity, people looked at me like I was making excuses. Just keep doing what you're doing, they'd say. Weight loss isn't linear. Maybe you're eating more than you think. Are you sure you're not just noticing it more now that you've lost weight? I started to doubt my own experience. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe I was looking for excuses. Maybe I was just being dramatic about normal weight fluctuations. But my gut knew something was different. My gut knew this wasn't about my food choices or my exercise routine. My gut knew my body was dealing with something beyond my control. It took months of research and self-advocacy to connect the dots back to that lipedema diagnosis from decades earlier. It took even more research to understand that hormonal changes like puberty, pregnancy, menopause, or a hysterectomy can trigger flares of this condition. Suddenly, everything made sense. The heaviness, the pain, the way my legs looked different despite my continued efforts, the way traditional weight loss strategies weren't working for this specific issue. But understanding what was happening didn't make it easier to deal with emotionally. Here I was, well into my transformation journey, having lost a considerable amount of weight, having run a marathon, having completely changed my relationship with food and exercise, and my body was still finding ways to challenge me. It felt like being punished for my past. It felt like no matter how hard I worked or how much I changed, I would always be dealing with the consequences of the damage I had done to my body during my 400-pound years. The most frustrating part was the invisibility of it all. Lipedema isn't recognized as a medical condition that deserves treatment or insurance coverage in Canada, where I live. Most doctors don't know what it is or how to treat it. Most people have never heard of it, so they assume you're just making excuses for weight gain. It's isolating as hell. You feel invisible, but also like a burden. You're dealing with a real medical condition that affects your daily life, your mobility, your comfort, your mental health, but you constantly have to explain and justify and prove that it's real. You're fighting a battle that most people can't see, don't understand, and don't believe is actually happening. The emotional toll of managing an invisible chronic condition while trying to maintain weight loss is something nobody prepared me for. Every day you have to choose between accepting your limitations and fighting against them. Every day you have to decide whether to explain your condition to people who don't understand or just let them think you're lazy or making excuses. Every day you have to find the balance between accommodating your body's reality and not giving up on your goals. Now, going through menopause, I'm dealing with another flare-up. My legs are starting to feel like cinder blocks again. I'm scared of losing the mobility I had fought so hard to regain. I'm watching my body change in ways that have nothing to do with my food choices or my commitment to my health. And I'm fighting harder this time, using conservative treatments at my own expense, of course, refusing to accept that this is just how it is now. Living with lipedema has taught me something. Your body doesn't owe you fairness. It doesn't owe you linear progress. It doesn't owe you predictable responses to your efforts. Your body is going to do what your body is going to do, and some of that is beyond your control. What you can control is how you respond to what your body does. You can choose to work with your body's limitations instead of against them. You can choose to adapt your strategies when your original plan stops working. You can choose to be compassionate with yourself when your body presents you with challenges you didn't expect. You can choose to keep fighting even when the fight looks different than you thought it would. Living with lipedema has also taught me the importance of advocating for yourself when dealing with medical professionals who don't understand your condition. You know your body better than anyone else. You know when something feels different, when something isn't working, when something needs attention. Don't let anyone, doctors, friends, family, or strangers on the internet, talk you out of trusting your own experience. The disease you've never heard of might be part of your story too. Maybe it's not lipedema. Maybe it's PCOS or thyroid issues or insulin resistance or any number of conditions that can complicate weight management and make your journey look different from other people's. Whatever it is, it's real, it matters, it deserves attention and accommodation and treatment, and it doesn't invalidate everything else you've accomplished. It doesn't mean you're broken or hopeless or destined to fail. It just means your journey is more complex than you originally thought, and it might challenge your ass far more than you expected. Accept the challenge. Complex doesn't mean impossible. It just means you need different strategies, different expectations, and different kinds of support. You can still create an incredible life in a body that presents you with challenges. You can still be proud of your progress, even when that progress doesn't look like what you expected. You could still be committed to your health, even when your health requires more nuance and flexibility than you originally planned. The disease you've never heard of doesn't get to write the end of your story. It just gets to be part of your story, and you get to decide what the rest of that story looks like. Real talk questions. What signals is your body giving you that you've been ignoring or dismissing? Chronic pain, fatigue, hormonal symptoms, digestive issues, sleep problems. What has your body been trying to tell you that you've been chalking up to just being overweight or getting older? When have you doubted your own experience because others didn't understand it? Medical gaslighting is real. Family dismissal is real. Self-doubt in the face of invisible conditions is real. When have you talked yourself out of trusting what you know about your own body? How do you balance accepting your body's limitations with not giving up on your goals? This is the hardest question. How do you accommodate real medical conditions without using them as excuses? How do you adapt your strategies without abandoning your commitment to health? Body detective exercise. For 2 weeks, track not just what you eat and how you exercise, but how your body feels. Daily tracking, energy level 1 to 10, pain levels and locations, sleep quality, mood and mental clarity, digestive issues, any swelling or inflammation, hormonal symptoms. Look for patterns. Do certain foods trigger symptoms? Do certain activities help or hurt? Are there cyclical patterns related to your menstrual cycle? Are there seasonal patterns? Do stress levels correlate with physical symptoms? The goal is to become an expert on your own body so you can advocate for yourself effectively. Medical advocacy prep. If you suspect you have an undiagnosed condition, prepare for medical appointments. Before the appointment, research your symptoms and possible conditions. Write down specific examples. On Tuesday, I experienced X, which lasted for Y duration. Track patterns. This happens every month around day Z of my cycle. Prepare questions. What tests can rule out X condition? During the appointment, be specific. Sharp stabbing pain, not it hurts. Be persistent. I'd like this documented in my chart, if dismissed. Ask for referrals. Which specialist would you recommend for this? Request tests. Can we rule out X with a blood test? Don't accept dismissive responses like it's just stress. You need to lose weight when you're already working on that. It's normal for women your age. Try eating less and exercising more. Self-compassion for complex bodies. Practice these thoughts when your body doesn't respond the way you expect. Instead of my body is broken, say my body is complex and deserves individualized care. Instead of I must be doing something wrong, say I'm doing my best with the information I have. Instead of this isn't fair, say this is my reality and I can work with it. Instead of I should be able to control this, say some things are beyond my control and that's okay. Instead of I'm making excuses, say I'm acknowledging real challenges so I can address them. Truth bomb. Your body doesn't owe you fairness, predictability, or easy solutions. Some of you are dealing with invisible conditions that complicate everything. Hormonal issues, genetic predispositions, chronic illnesses, metabolic disorders. These conditions are real, they matter, they deserve attention and accommodation. And and they don't make you broken or hopeless or destined to fail. They just make your journey more complex, and complex journeys require more nuanced strategies, more self-compassion, and more flexibility. You can still create an incredible life in a complex body. You just need to be willing to work with your reality instead of against it. You need to be willing to advocate for yourself when others don't understand. You need to be willing to adapt when your original plan stops working. The disease you've never heard of doesn't get to end your story. It just gets to complicate it. And you're smart enough, strong enough, and determined enough to handle complicated. You and I both know that. And so does Stuart Smalley. That Stuart Smalley reference at the end, if you know, you know. And if you don't, look it up. It's from Saturday Night Live, and it's both hilarious and oddly perfect for this conversation about self-compassion. But let's talk about lipedema for a sec, because most of you have never heard of it, and that's exactly the problem. I was diagnosed in 2000, so 25 years, actually 26, well, almost 26 years. And the doctor mentioned it so briefly with so little information that I completely forgot about it. Kind of. Because at that point, I was dealing with being morbidly obese and I was trying to have a baby, and I don't know, all of those things kind of seemed like the bigger issue. So I didn't understand that lipedema was a separate condition that had nothing to do with my weight or my eating habits. Like I said, it's a genetic condition that affects fat distribution. It's also got a vascular aspect to it. It's almost exclusively in women. It's very painful. It's progressive. I bruise very, very easily. The slightest touch on my legs is very painful. I get flare-ups when I travel. Flying does it. And that's kind of where the vascular and almost the mistaking it for lymphedema component comes in. It doesn't respond to diet and exercise the way that regular fat does. And you can lose weight everywhere else and still have lipedema fat getting worse in your legs, arms, or other affected areas. It is triggered by hormonal changes. All of the major hormonal milestones that women go through can cause or trigger flare-ups. So, I lost all this weight and I transformed, and I had healed or was healing my relationship with food and exercise, and my legs were getting bigger and more painful, and nobody understood what I was talking about. I started to make worse choices because I wasn't really in the know at the time what was happening to me, cutting calories and exercising more and just kind of hitting walls because there was no progress. People would dismiss me and I started doubting myself. Was I dreaming? Was this really happening? But even my pants were getting tighter in my legs and gaping in my waist. And it was very, very confusing. My gut knew though, my gut knew something was different. And eventually I connected the dots back to that diagnosis. No treatment is recognized in Canada. Most doctors don't know what the hell it is. Most people have never heard of it. You're dealing with a real medical condition and you constantly have to explain and justify and prove that it's real. After the initial discovery after my hysterectomy, I ended up paying out of pocket to have liposuction done on my legs. He warned me that it could cause, some disfigurement because he wasn't really skilled in the lipedema department. It was fine though, because it restored my mobility. Once I healed, I was able to move again. And at times now, now that I'm 50 and kind of going through some hormonal changes again, I'm starting to feel stuff again. I don't want to have to get more lipo, but if I do, I will definitely go to a surgeon that actually specializes in it. Yeah, so I'm scared, of losing my mobility, fighting a battle that people can't see and don't understand, and sometimes don't believe is happening. They look at me and they just think, "Oops, she's getting chubby again," but no, um, you know. But yeah, like my legs are feeling the cinder blocks again. I'm still moving every day. I'm watching my body change in ways that have nothing to do with my food choices or level of exercise. And I'm fighting it with conservative treatments that I pay for out of pocket. I do manual lymphatic drainage. I use vibration plates, compression, dry brushing, all kinds of different things I do to help with what I'm going through right now every day. And it's kind of exhausting. But you can control how you respond to what's happening to you. You can't control it happening to you. That's another thing, I have to be very careful. I know what my trigger foods are. I know that sugar is really, really bad for my lipedema, and often alcohol now as well. So I have to be really careful with both. I'm typically pretty careful with sugar as it is, but I have to prepare, if I'm going to have something sweet, or if I'm going to travel and not give a shit about what I'm eating because I'm, just enjoying the foods that I get to try wherever I am. I'm not going to care. I'm just going to know that, I'm going to pay for it at the end of the day, or at the end of the vacation, or at the end of whatever. Especially when flying factors in. That can knock me down for 3 to 6 weeks after, with a lot of swelling in my legs. Yeah. So just quickly about the medical stuff, be specific about your symptoms and track your patterns, and don't ever accept dismissive responses. Ask for tests, get things documented on your chart, get referrals to specialists. You want to see a vascular surgeon if you suspect that you have lipedema. You're going to get the best response from a vascular surgeon. Don't even bother trying to teach your general practitioner anything. If they don't know about it, they don't want to know about it. And I guarantee you they're not interested in hearing about it. So just right out of the gate, ask for a referral to a vascular surgeon. And also remember that medical gaslighting is real, especially for women, especially for overweight women or formerly overweight women. Doctors will blame everything on your weight or tell you to just eat less and exercise more, even when you're already doing that and it's not working. So just trust your gut, advocate for yourself. You know your body better than anyone else. All those exercises that I said to try, please do them. I always say that every episode. I don't just throw them in there, to fill space. I throw them in there because you need to do them. If you want to heal your mind and stuff, you need to do these things and get used to doing these things. Yeah, the disease you've never heard of, whether it's lipedema or something else, it doesn't get to end your story. It just gets to complicate it. Thank you. And you are very capable of handling complicated. And you can still create an incredible life in a complex, challenging body. You just need to be willing to work with your reality instead of against it. So before I go, if you want to discuss this episode with anyone, including myself, there's a Facebook group. Link is in the show notes. All my content is free and always will be. But if you want to support the production costs, the support information is also in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, and I will see you in the next episode.
Thanks for listening to Unbound with Beth Curry. Join the conversation in the Facebook group or visit authorbethcurry.com. Want to support the show? Head to ko-fi.com/unbound podcast. Until next time, stay unbound.